To me, the 0 to 1 journey is manual. But it is just 100% conversations with individuals and literally like going and getting the people that you want to use your thing and telling them exactly why they need to, and like observing how that conversation goes and then figuring out what needs to happen to like make it better for them.
Yep. Yep.
Every story I've ever heard about a company doing great, in the beginning, that was it. And like,
yeah, and you have to hold this. I think a lot of founders, they get too excited about their V1 and they feel like they have to be this salesperson, showman, and be like, this is the greatest thing ever. You're going to love it. And I think you have to have some of that. But I think if you do that too much, then you lose the curiosity. Like you need to go into these conversations being like, okay, like 10% of this pitch is right.
yeah,
90% is wrong.
yeah,
And I'm mostly curious to figure out what the wrong parts are, not convince you that the whole thing is right.
right.
And I think it takes some like lessons. It takes definitely some like vulnerability to be like, hey, like, I want you to tell me my baby's ugly. I know there's parts of it that are cool and parts of it are terrible. And it's like having the curiosity to enter these conversations with that
Yeah,
is such a key. And if you just get too hyped about your own product and think this is the greatest thing ever, and if someone doesn't understand it, you blame them and you go,
yeah,
oh, they're idiots. They don't understand it. Moving on,
right.
you miss these like key little things that you'll pick up from customer conversations where they'll tell you like what you need to do to make it amazing.
Totally.
And that's key for people.
Yeah. I love that. And I think that's exactly right. Like I post about our churn on LinkedIn. I've never seen another SaaS person
Yeah,
post
you're
about
so good about
how
that.
shitty their churn is on LinkedIn. But the reason that I do is because from that one post, I got 393 comments of people telling me why they churned.
Yep.
Like how long would that have taken an internal team to do those interviews? You couldn't have gotten that in 2 quarters.
Yep.
Right. And like, we did a bunch of stuff. Like I went through them all and synthesized it. We put it in Gemini and got it synthesized with numbers. Like we got such incredible insights from, and like now, like I say, our product sucks. Like it's not usable for who I think our ICP is. Like
Yep.
we have a free user who is great for it. We have enterprise users who are not our ICP, great for it. The middle, it's terrible. And like I wasn't saying that before that post. Like
Yep.
now I know why, and I have a strong hypothesis of what might fix all those problems.
Yep.
We'll see. Could be totally wrong.
And I think like the underlying framing is like coming at it from a level of service. You want to just be in this mindset where like, I'm just here to serve you,
Yeah.
not become a unicorn, not raise a bunch of money, not grow super fast. Like if you do that, all of a sudden you have to kind of position yourself. You have to look really good all the time. You can't share anything bad because like, you're like, well, we got to become this thing that we're not yet. But if you come at it from service level, like you said, like we never thought a unicorn would come out of this. Like we weren't talking about we want to grow a unicorn,
Right.
but
yeah, we'll get to that later.
it was
What you
probably
were
like
thinking when you started this company is one of my favorite parts of this entire story.
yeah, yeah, and but it was just like it was like okay, we're coming out from like we want to serve customers, and like that kind of thinking allows you to come with the right frame of mind to build a company that could, ultimately become a unicorn. But I think a lot of people get that flipped, and they think that they've got to just kind of fake it until they make it the whole time. But you'll miss these key insights if you do that.
Totally. Let's do like 2 minutes on YC because that's why I reached out to you
Yep.
originally. I found you on clarity.fm because I'd heard about you through a business coach I had. Your brand looked dope. You just come out of YC. And I was like, should I also go to YC?
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So like, what's your take on YC? What does it do? What does it not do? How did it impact your journey?
Yeah, we loved it. I mean, for me, we weren't in the software space at all. We were just these internet marketers. And I just looked at, hey, where do the best software companies come from? And they come from all over, but
Yeah.
a lot of them were coming out of YC. And I was
Yeah.
like, well, if I'm going to learn how to be a great software entrepreneur, I better go learn from the best. And so we applied with proof. Didn't get in the first time. They were like, hey, it's kind of a toy. They asked me like what our dream is for it to be, $1 billion company. I really didn't have an answer for that. So I said, like, keep building, come back to us with an answer, with that, you should reapply. So we reapplied 6 months later, got in, and it was just kind of a no-brainer for us. I mean, it's definitely like a big, investment to go move out there for 3 months and, learn from the best. And there's nothing magical about YC. Like all their content is online now. So like, there's nothing I learned that was like this one hack that they like leave out of the YouTube content for free. It was basically, our team moving out moving really fast, picking one metric, which for us was growth, and just being around all these people that really kind of normalize building a really huge company. That was probably the biggest thing for us is I would just sit down with all these people, and a lot of them, the founders they'd bring back that have like built these billion-dollar companies, and
Yeah.
they all seemed like kind of like me. I mean, they were probably
Yeah.
smarter than me, but it's like they weren't these other types of people. I was like, yeah, like you're kind of like me and you went through the same stuff. And then we sat down with Paul Buchheit, the creator of Gmail. He does these little 30-minute sessions with teams. And he's like, okay, let's dream about how to build $100 billion company someday.
Yeah.
And he's like, you may not get there, but you definitely won't get there if you at least don't kind of think about what that could look like.
Yeah.
And so I kind of walked out of there, we never kind of figured out all the components and how that would work. But all of a sudden, like a billion-dollar company, like didn't seem nearly as big. It's 1% as big as Paul Buchheit wants us to get,
Yeah.
like that. So it just like reframed how I thought about scale and what I thought was normal.
Yeah.
I think a lot about like the guy that ran the 4-minute mile for the first time. Like it had just never been done. No one could do it. And it just took this one guy doing it. And then I think the second guy was like 6 weeks later. And then all of a sudden, it was just the idea that this was possible
Yes.
made everybody faster.
24 people did it in the next year.
Yeah, it's crazy. And that's
Roger Bannister is the guy's name.
and that's totally what it was for me, was
Yeah.
just being like, oh, this is as normal as, starting a smaller company.
Yeah.
It's just a different set of thinking, a different set of, market circumstances. There's a different way to kind of position your company, but it definitely like grew my mindset so much. So I get a lot of people still call me about like YC, is it worth it? I say for almost everyone, it's totally worth it.
Yeah.
They give you some money, they take 7% of your company, something like that. But like then you can raise money at the end, so much easier. And I think it's totally worth it. Can you build a great company without it? Obviously, of course, the majority of great companies are not YC companies.
Yeah.
But like pound for pound, dollar for dollar, like that's the best way for most people to learn it.
Yeah. I love that. So that brings us to, how did it go from Proof to Jasper?
So we were sitting, this is, us chilling in the office.
This was bad. I mean, this was like, these were weird times.
Yeah, it sucked.
And
you were running, what was your cover? Your
so I had just
Robley.
Yeah, background on this. When I started sharing the office with Dave, I had Robley, which had been stuck at 3 million ARR for over 2 years. Then I had I had tried to create another email market. I can't even believe that we thought this was a good idea. The business coach made us stop, but we had spent a year building and not talking to people, building another a totally different website that did the same thing as Robley, but for people with big lists.
Yeah, what was that called?
Lead.com.
That's right.
So I went to this trade show, Traffic and Conversion Summit, did this big stunt where we hired a bunch of models, and it was supposed to be people with big lists. We had them walk up, his 100% male audience, had them walk up to these guys and hand them a pack of gum that says size matters on it, and then say, how big is your list? Like these 18-year-old girls. So no one cared when they realized it was an ESP.
Yeah.
But I had heard like 6 weeks before that it was possible to resolve an anonymous website visitor to an email address without someone filling out a form. No idea how to do it technically, but I had heard that. First day was devastating because it was just like, I could really feel that no one cared. They had that problem solved, the ESP problem, like whatever. The rock bottom moment for me, laying in my bed, looking over at Helen, I'm just like, we just paid 6 developers for 12 months to like build this code, and we're going to throw it away. And I wasted another year of my life.
Yep.
Like another year of my life of this company slowly shrinking has gone by, and I'm no further ahead than I was a year ago. Which, like, some of you may hear 3 million ARR and think that's a good place to be. If you're shrinking, it is not.
No,
it is not at all. It is very bad. It's the feelings of inadequacy and like, do I have what it takes, and like the whole thing. So from that trade show, the next day I woke up, there was the glazed look, and I was like, by the way, would you care if I told you that I could get emails from people who don't fill out forms? And then, like you were saying about Jasper before the show, everybody's like, what? Like, is that for sale? Like, when is it ready? Like, just the eyes lit up, So I took their business cards, and then I like set out to go figure out how to do this. Figured out, 2 months later, how to kind of white label it together. And then like 6 months later, we had our own way of doing it. And that was get emails. So I think at the time Jasper started, I had Robley at 3 million stuck. with 6 people, throwing off like $1.5 million or something, but it was shrinking. And then I had Get Emails, frustratingly, which hit 3 million. 9 months later was still at 3 million. So like I was in this position of like, Dave and I are just $3 million guys, but if you had 5 of these and each of them had 6 people, then that, you're living in Aspen or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like then it starts to be really interesting, like 15 million ARR, and like you got a small team and like their cash flow things, and like they're not going anywhere, but they're not really growing. So I remember during that, so like that was my side of it. So what was like your side of 2020 COVID era?
Well, my
Like,
recollection, I mean, it was kind of like you were stuck before us with
yeah,
Giddy or with Robley.
yeah,
Then Proof kind of got stuck at about that
yeah,
2.5, 3 million mark. We kind of, same thing as you, we kind of went into our hole. We built out this website personalization thing, didn't talk to any customers.
yeah,
We'd been to YC. We've got some money in the bank. Like we know what we're doing now. We don't have to do all that stupid customer discovery stuff because we're experts in this. And at some point we were kind of like, I kind of started to feel like this is probably not going to work, but I recruited this team on this vision. We've got like a lot of the code written, we've spent $1.5 million. We were building this website personalization tool that was kind of
yeah,
going to be the Proof 2.0. And we definitely got to this point where it was like, I don't think this is going to work. This is miserable, but we're already this far. Let's at least kind of see it through for another like 6 months or so. And then it was my recollection was that Get Emails was kind of really taking off. You're kind of popping into my office,
yeah,
every day,
yeah,
hour or two, be like, dude, you wouldn't
yeah,
believe this. And I'm like, pull up and like, let me see your MRR, let me see
yeah,
your churn. Like, this is unbelievable. And so I'm sitting here like stuck.
yeah,
We ended up at the end of that year, like doing some layoffs, kind of deciding we didn't want to work on the problem anymore. You just kind of Hail Married this new thing out of nowhere.
yeah.
And it was
Like,
kind of,
like in your office, by the way.
yeah,
It
yeah,
was like
yeah,
I didn't have this thing, and then like it was there.
yeah. And it
And
was
then
it
all of
was
a
the
sudden,
4 minute mile thing
yeah,
where
yeah,
it was like, okay, like Adam, like I know Adam, I think you're super smart, super sharp, huge hustler, gonna grind it out. But like you were still the same guy that was kind of floundering around with Robley. And now, just by like picking a different market and different product and like thinking about it more deeply, you pivoted into this thing that was like taking off. And I was like, crap, like Adam's figuring this out. I'm
yeah,
still a loser, stuck here at this thing.
yeah,
And it definitely just, I remember we started sitting down talking, like, I was like, man, like I need one of these. Like
yeah,
I've been stuck on this thing for 2 years now. I want what you have right now.
yeah,
And it was probably that. It was probably like, I want what you
yeah,
have. And even just that mindset caused me to kind of step back and say, okay, like I'm not going to work on Proof anymore. We were trying to sell it. We talked to like some brokers about selling Proof. I'm just trying to get something out of it, but we were like growing super slow, burning a bunch of money. And like the brokers were like, you either can grow fast and like sell at a revenue multiple, or you can be profitable and growing slow and sell it like a, EBITDA multiple. And we were neither.
right,
So he's like, you need to grow faster. I was like, we've been trying that for two
yeah,
years. Like, that's not possible. He's like, or you got to get profitable. We're like, well, we're going to lay off like a bunch of the team. We're going to refactor a bunch of code to like get costs down. We're going to kind of run this thing as like a lifestyle business for 2 years to like show like 2 years of like
yeah,
profitable P&Ls. That this is like a real thing, and then sell it for, you'd said on LinkedIn yesterday, pennies on the dollar. It was going to be like 2 to 3 million-ish, but then you
yeah,
got some investors and you got other
yep,
shares. It was like we were all going to walk out of there with probably like 500,000 to 1 million, which
yeah,
obviously is not a bad outcome.
right,
But for all the work and everything we've been doing, it
totally.
certainly was not, an ideal situation for us.
And for what happened next, right? So like right around this time, I mean, I've gone through the text messages between us before for keynotes and stuff, and like I just remember like, so like when you have one business at 3 million ARR that's shrinking, that's not that great. When you have another one and the churn was so high, I was just like, I don't know how much bigger this gets, but like I just did two. And now all of a sudden, me and my two co-founders are splitting $3 million, which is great,
Yeah.
right? Like, and I'm just envisioning like, what if we had one more of these? We'd be splitting maybe $6 million, right? Because like some of the costs you share or whatever. And I remember going to you and being like, dude, like these two businesses I built, Robley was a user interface on top of SendGrid. Get Emails, which is now retention.com, at the time, it was like a user interface on top of this company, Tricera, right? Like they were doing the identity, but it was the breakthrough was their product was unusable, right? Like we made it an easy SaaS to get up and going on. and then kind of had some marketing, expertise or whatever. And I just remember being like, maybe this is it, right? Like maybe it's like find these guys who have
We're like
technology and
finding
like,
these APIs.
yeah,
We
like
were calling them pass-through businesses.
right, exactly. Like, and just build these little SaaS, UIs and
Package
distribution
it
on top
up.
of them. So I think the first SMS, John, can you throw up the first text? So like, this is Dave to me on December 12th of 2020, which is exactly kind of like what I had just described in my memory of it. Like, you're like, dude, I think we can do like a pass through on top of, you know, like ChatGPT. It's just like get emails. And then John, show the other one. And then this is unbelievable, right? So this is 9 days later, or no, it's 17 days later. Sorry. First paying customer, had the idea 7 days ago. And then this is my favorite part of this. I put this in keynote speeches because I just like love emphasizing like how little you know about the company when you start it.
Yep.
Right. So at the time, I had Robley, which was 230 MRR. I had Get Emails, which was 268, and you guys were at like 230 or something. And you say this to me all the time. You're like, back then, Get Emails was the biggest business I'd ever seen.
Oh
So
yeah.
like it was the high watermark between us. And when you guys launched this, the goal was to get 268,000 monthly recurring revenue.
I was just trying to beat you. I was trying to catch up.
I
You
just
know, I didn't know
like that to me is like the most mind-blowing thing ever. And then the next slide I show like that little line graph
Yeah.
it's like, and then when it became so real to me and like not the podcast startup.com with the twitch.com guy was like when I sat there in that conference room all year and I looked over across the room and it was this island of 6 guys. And at the end of every day, I'd walk over there and be like, what happened? And you're like, I don't fucking know, but like we have 50K more
Yeah.
MRR than we
Another
did this morning.
50K. Another
Right.
50K.
Like,
I'm refreshing the graph
yeah,
every
yeah,
10 minutes.
it's just like boom, boom, boom. And it's amazing because this was my Roger Bannister moment. It's like all you did was keep trying,
Yep.
you know? And like, yeah, like some of that was lucky. You had some YC connections for that or whatever. But like, I think, man, I don't know. Look, I've heard of one guy, Ross Paquette, that like the first thing that he did, it just was up and to the right.
Yep.
Nobody else.
Yep.
Right? Like every single other story that I've heard of massively successful people has been something along the lines of what we are discussing right now.
Yep. And I think the lesson here, as I reflect on it, is like if you're listening to this and you've been kind of stuck for a while, and by a while, it's probably 6 months, a year, you're probably not going to get out of it by small iterations. And this is anecdotal. This is my experience. Talking to a lot of people. Like Jasper was me not adding some feature, not redoing the homepage of Proof. It was me saying, I'm done tweaking this website optimization business. I'm going to step all the way back.
Yeah.
I'm going to look at all the options of what I could do with my life. And then I'm going to kind of laser in on a new thing that, Jasper was tangentially related to Proof. It was a similar market. It was software. So, I mean, there's some things that were in our wheelhouse. But you said this before we started recording, is like when you have product market fit, everything works. And when you don't, nothing works. I remember having this moment where Austin Distal, amazing marketer, built out this huge funnel for Proof. It was all the upsells, the downsells, and 45, different emails that trigger off. And it was like perfect. And I looked at it, I was like, this is perfect. He launched it like one morning and it was going to like blow up the business. And then I came in like the next day and I was like, dude, like, how's it going? Like, give me the update. And he goes, I actually turned it off. Like, I've got a little different idea. And I remember looking at him and I go, dude, we're in trouble because like no longer do you even care. Like we were so used to losing.
Yeah.
To him, it was just like, oh, you just kind of turn it off. Like that was like 2 months of work. Like I'm on to this next thing here. And I was like, we're doing such good work and it's not working. Like we've got a real problem here.
Yeah.
And then you fast forward, I have the same team with Jasper. On our best day early on, we added like $4 million of ARR in one day. And same team,
Yeah.
Same guy that built the funnel that we turned off 24 hours later, built a funnel 5 months later that adds $4 million of ARR. And it was like, yes, we had some like different skills and all that, but it was like we had product market fit.
Yeah.
We were riding a different wave. And so I think my advice for people is like, if you've been stuck for a period of time, I'm not saying it's like a week, or 2 weeks, but even like a few months, you probably need to make a pretty big swing to get it working again.
Yeah.
And a pretty big different product iteration. Like you got to zig way harder than most people think you have to. And almost all of my successes have come from a pretty big zig out of what we were doing.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about the story of Get Emails, which is now retention.com, is originally I thought this is what's going to grow my email marketing application. I don't know if you remember. I called it Robly ID, right? And I was like, the reason this is going to work is because the big guys can't do it because they're not allowed to sell data and be in this self-regulatory organization where they have ins to Gmail and Hotmail and like whatever else. So they'll never have the feature that I was like, that's a moat, that's great, whatever. People signed up for Robly, used the identity feature, downloaded it, put it in Klaviyo, and told me it was badass.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So like that was like the pivot to something very different.
Yep.
And
we could have made Jasper this little add-on. It could have been Jasper copyright or no, proof copywriting.
Yeah.
Like we could have tried to bury it inside of this brand that we already had, but it's like it just gets too confusing.
Yep.
Like if you'd left it as like Robly ID, like
no,
you would have been dead in the water.
Dead in the water. Because the problem is, not to cut you off, but like the problem is like still when you see Robly, you're like, I have an email marketing app. I don't need that shit.
Yeah.
When it's something totally new that and this is like, I think I will always try to start businesses that are in these spaces that are like, maybe they're fringe markets, maybe like, it's just for whatever reason, no one's doing it.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's just so much easier when someone thinks they're hearing something for the first time to get them to stop and listen.
Yep.
Than to do this like better, faster trade or whatever it is.
Yep.
Right?
And you don't want them thinking, I already have this tool.
Yeah.
Like you just want them thinking, I don't have this tool.
Yeah.
It connects into the tool I do have. Dude, I feel like you're kind of like the micro of SaaS businesses. It's just like dirty jobs. You're the guy willing to be like, I'm gonna go into this space.
Yeah, I like
that's
that.
My new branding for you. The micro, dirty SaaS. Just do the hard little fringe thing that people don't want to do. That's not sexy. It's hard. It's confusing. And you go in there and you make it happen.
So, yeah, I mean, somebody asked a question up here. I think they're looking through the headlines. They're like, what happened next? Right. But before we go to the fundraising thing, I want to ask you, like, can we go over again? Because we were talking about it a little bit before the show and then a little bit right now, but like when someone, okay. So I want to say something first. One, I don't think that money is the answer to this hard pivot. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think like, oh, we're stuck. I need to go raise $1 million from investors and experiment with this. The dream scenario is you fire everybody, you milk proof for all that it's worth, and that is funding other stuff because you don't know when it's going to hit, right? The problem with raising money for something that doesn't exist yet is like you're just on this treadmill and like you can die. And then if you destroy your credibility, then you're done. So that's my personal view. Now, what were the indications to you that this might be something big? Like, what was the difference between when proof was starting and when you were in like beta with Jasper?
One thing I always heard about product market fit was, that you'll know it when you have it. And that was always so frustrating for me because I'm sitting there at proof and again, I'm missing the whole point here. And I'm thinking, well, that's not really helpful because how do I know if I have it or not?
Yeah.
And it's like, if you don't know, if you're not sure, you don't have it.
Yeah.
And it is worth everything to find product market fit. And I actually think raising money makes it harder to find product market fit because you start pushing things out. You can go into your bunker for a year and kind of play make believe, and you don't have to fire anybody because you can always make payroll because you've got more cash at the bank.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. raising money inhibits your ability to
It
find product market
it
fit.
really hurt us at Proof, and with this website personalization product, we went into our hole, and we just,
Yep.
we're gonna figure it out ourselves. With Jasper, yeah, we were just kind of back against the wall, and we went to Jasper, and we basically said, we're never gonna, if we can't get a paying customer in like 1 month, we're going to shut it down, and
Yep.
we're not going to do this product. And so we were just like, we're never going through that year again of building in a hole. We want to find out right away if the baby's ugly
Yep.
and move forward with it or not. And so I got on these Zoom calls with people, when we had a little dashboard internally, my co-founder built it. I couldn't actually log in. They couldn't log in. I couldn't sell this product. And I would just show them, over a Zoom screen share, and people would just go nuts on the call.
Yeah.
And they would say, Dave, and it's like that $100 screenshot.
Yeah.
That was actually just me on a call and them saying, like, can I give you money to be like first in line when this comes out?
Yeah.
And I go, yeah, like I can just manually charge you $100 in Stripe right now. Let me like log into Stripe, pull
Yeah.
open, create a new customer. What's your name? What's your last name? Read off your credit card number. Like, it was just verbally over this Zoom call. We got our first customer. And then I was like, and I'll get you the login, here in 3 weeks or whatever.
Yeah.
But there was just a visceral excitement from everybody I told about it that was so different than like kind of the polite, acknowledgments I would get with previous stuff. Where it's like, man, Dave, this is so cool. Like, I hope it goes really well. Like, let me like keep me posted. It was like, I'm driving to your house right now. Put it on a thumb drive. I'm going to stand on your front door, until you give it to me, kind of thing. And I was like, this is totally different.
Yeah.
And so we really quickly packaged it up. It was broken. It was buggy. I'd onboard people one by one. I'd just say, I'm going to onboard you. There's no help docs. There's no button to cancel. You can like text me if you want to cancel, and I'll just probably give you another free 2 months till we work out the bugs. And I just like let them use it, that way when it was like very, very rough around the edges, like no website, like nothing, just a web app that had a few features, and people would use it and they would like message me and they'd be like, Dave, this is unbelievable. Like, shut up, take my money. Like, I'll pay however much. And so I just think like, if you're not getting that kind of reaction, and again, there's probably levels to like that kind of reaction, but like you want like people very excited about your product and getting great results with it pretty quickly, or you're probably not there yet. That's worth continuing to iterate until you do.
Totally. And like with this RB2B thing, which is my new product, like people were saying things like, and we went out with this massive free offer in the beginning. We still have a nice free offer, but this is like free for everybody. I was just like, let's get everybody on. And I hear things like, this feels like I'm cheating.
Yep.
Like what the fuck am I looking at?
And I always had this thing I would tell my team, and looking back, I don't know how helpful this is, but basically I would always tell people for years, hey, nothing ever works as well as you think that it will.
Yeah.
So we'd be like, we're going to host this webinar, and I'd be like, how many people do we want on it? Let's get 1,000 registrants. We're going to get like 400 registrants.
Yeah.
Like, how well is this funnel going? It's going to convert at 30% and convert at 12%. And so I'd always kind of say, like, take your estimates and like cut them in half.
Yeah.
And if the thing's still going to work at half as good, then it's like viable. And then after Jasper, I just turned a few months in, I turned to one of the guys and I go, everything works better than you think it will.
Yeah.
And that was totally different than the previous 6 years I've been in business.
Yeah.
And it was like, you think you're getting 1,000 webinar registrants? We'd get 9,000. And you'd think like everything was better.
Yeah.
Same team, same stuff.
Yeah.
Everything was better. And so it's like, if you're in this situation where like nothing works as well as you hope that it will, and you're not getting any of these like riding the wave, scenarios where it's like, you're like, hey, like, I know I'm doing good work. And again, obviously, like, we were doing good work. We had a great team. We were early to market. We moved super quick. Like, we were the SEAL Team 6, like, built for this purpose. But at the same time, we were also just like riding an awesome wave that like was just the right time, right place.
Totally. I want to pause for a second and a word from the sponsor. My other webinar, Ely, can you drop in event.rb2b.com/webinar? So this is Thursday at 1 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Eastern. Full open kimono on what we're doing to grow RB2B. It's the first one of its kind that I've done. Like, these are a slightly different format. So check that out. It's going to be rad. I would highly recommend it. Tactical stuff. Back to the point here. Okay. So, Jasper, is now 50 million ARR after 12 months. What do you do? Right? Like you have this like unbelievable machine. It's generating tons of like $1 million of profit a month. Your team's still tiny. You're on top of the world. You're literally, I remember hooking you up with some like investment bankers I knew, and they were like, no one has ever seen anything like this before.
Oh
So
yeah, I tried to sell it to them back then.
it's not even worth like going to people because they don't know how to even process it. Like, what happened then?
Yeah, so we were growing super fast. I started having investors reach out. And again, you and I are of this mind, we were of this mindset at the time that like, hey, like we're not going to ever hire big teams again. We just want to run it
By the
lean.
way, I'm back there.
You're still there.
Back there.
I didn't last long there. But we got to this point where it was like, all right, how do you actually exit a company? And Jasper was getting like so big so fast that it started to, and I tried to sell them to your buddies, and like they were like, like we can't really like touch this.
Yeah.
It's too weird. Like you have to come back in like a few years when we see kind of how the data, irons out. And it got to this point where it was like, all right, we've got this like unbelievable growth trajectory. We had 9 people at the time, still like the exact same small little team, having a
Yeah.
blast doing it, but we were getting worn out. And we were like, we're either going to have to like go public, or we're going to have to like build a company that, can endure long enough to get like bought by a strategic acquire or something like that. And
Yeah.
like we were all getting so gassed, just like putting in, 20-hour days of customer support,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
handling all these
Yeah.
people. They were like, all right, we need to go build a team. And so I didn't really want to raise money, but I also felt like I'm going to regret not giving this thing a big swing,
Yeah.
because as I was talking to these, investors, like, we've never seen a company grow this fast. I was like, I
Mhm.
got the rest of my life to grow like little lifestyle businesses. Like this feels like I should like really see this thing through.
Yeah.
And so we raised the money for the purpose of scaling up, building the team, growing the engineering team. We had one engineer at the time still, my co-founder JP. And also getting some really great investors that kind of knew how to navigate the next phase of the journey, because I didn't know how to go public. You and me were just going to be sitting in our office,
Totally. Yeah.
doing
Dude,
this
by
all
the way,
day.
I missed that office, the
I
Plaza
that,
Street.
that,
You guys had to like, you had this parking problem and crossing the river sucked. The three of them live south. It was awesome for me. I live in Clarksville. I was just
oh
taking a
yeah.
scooter into this like loft with brick walls and these big
You were
windows every
living a
day.
little bit more of a bohemian life than
Yeah,
us.
so that place, I remember it so fondly. It was
Yeah.
like such a great spot. It was just like the perfect dudes building early stage startups
Yeah.
environment,
Yeah.
you know?
But no, we ended up raising 125 million from really great investors. We did it, and this is a good lesson for people. I actually raised that round. My email address was still Dave at useproof. And I think people get all prettied up and they
Yeah.
try to get everything looking great. And I would get on these calls and I would kind of be like, hey, listen, I don't really want to be here. I just want to keep working on my product and talking to my customers here, but I'm going to do 2 weeks of like raising money.
Yeah.
And my email address, I don't even have a Jasper email address. We haven't had time to set that stuff up yet for
Yeah.
building. And it was like, because the product was really great, the community was great, like investors like threw money at it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just think people get the cart before the horse and they do all the wrong things. Like you can raise with an Outlook email address if you've got a great product there. So like,
Yeah.
don't worry about some of these like extra little things. But yeah, ended up raising at bunch of really great firms come in there. They're really excited about it. And really our vision was, hey, we've got all these like SMB customers, all these freelancers.
Yeah.
Enterprises weren't using, really any AI at the time. It was too scary. It was too risky. They couldn't, take the risk of it saying something weird and some marketing intern putting it on the website and making them look bad. This is all before ChatGPT. So we always kind of knew that there would be this moment when this all goes mainstream and
Yeah.
blows up. And all the big players are going to be involved. All of the big, Fortune 500 companies are going to be buying it for their marketing teams. And that was a big emphasis of our Series A, was like, we need to get ready for that moment. We need to start
Yeah.
building out an enterprise quality product so that we can kind of make that pivot. I don't know if it's going to be, ChatGPT are coming out 2 months after we raised.
Yeah.
But I didn't know if it'd be like 12 months later or
Right.
2 years later. Frankly, I couldn't even believe it. I couldn't believe we'd gotten as far as we did without any, like, kind of the cat getting out of the bag.
Right.
That like, this is, the greatest space to play in. But we really wanted to kind of get ready for that. And so that was where we were going to plan on putting all the money.
Yeah. So like what happened when ChatGPT came out?
So
Like, do you remember the
ChatGPT,
moment when it hit and like, what did
yeah,
you think?
yeah. I mean, it was definitely like I remember seeing them kind of post our little internal Slack at first, and
Yeah,
just thinking, oh, like chat, like we don't do chat, like
yeah,
chat. There's like a different
yeah,
framing, and obviously it's like kind of a bad name, and whatever.
yeah,
But it wasn't until like probably like 2 or 3 days later I kind of like went and looked back at it, and I was like, oh, this is really great. And essentially they were kind of doing the same thing in essence that we were doing of taking this like underlying API, packaging it up in a user interface that is intuitive for someone to use, and then kind of doing some prompt engineering in the back end, and like making a cohesive end-to-end tool that really solves a problem. you know Turns out that's a really natural interface for people, and this is something
yeah,
that we missed and that we could have done something kind of like ChatGPT.
yeah,
Because for us, the conundrum was always, we're teaching people how to use AI, but no one's ever used this before. And so do you kind of teach them a whole new way of thinking about interacting with the computer? Or do you try to make it very similar to previous ways they've already interacted with the
yeah,
computer? And again, it turns out just chatting with a computer, people are texting all day long, they're doing emails, like it's kind of like that. Like that's a
yeah,
pretty good way to do it. And we just didn't see that at the time. So, for the first 3 months, like our business expanded even faster.
yeah,
And just a lot of people are sitting around over Thanksgiving break and Christmas break, and they're like signing up for AI tools. And then after that, and we were kind of like, well, that's kind of surprising. Like I thought
yeah,
we'd maybe grow slower. Then after that, we started seeing like the bottom end of our market like churn out. And it was
yeah.
people that were paying us, $60 a month, $99 a month, and they can get most of their job done with a $20 a month tool.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, like they should churn. Like if,
Yeah,
if we're not better or 5 times better,
yeah,
the ChatGPT for your use case, then like you should churn. Like we don't deserve your business. Now I hope we can earn it back. But we started seeing like the low end churn out. But we also started seeing these big enterprises come to the table for the first time. And
mm-hmm.
they would respond to demo requests where they,
Yeah,
ghosted us 6 months before. Now they're saying, hey, my boss said we're getting on the AI this year. Like,
yeah,
can we do another call and do that? And so, it was kind of like it was time to shift fully to enterprise and
yeah,
like move up market as fast as we can, because someone's got to be ready to get Home Depot
yeah,
involved and Adidas involved and like build a tool that's fully built for them. And so that was really what the whole next year was about, was like shifting our company culture to one that's for enterprises,
yeah,
and away from one that's serving bloggers that do ghostwriting in India.
yeah,
Get great customers, great use case, totally different needs than
yeah.
Home Depot needs to do
Mm-hmm.
that, and a different kind of company to build for them.
So what's that like as the founder CEO? Which I'm sure everyone here is wondering. You know,
Yeah.
I saw it. Man, it was weird too, because it was like you switched offices. I switched with you. Everyone stopped coming in. So, it was like I feel like I didn't live that part of your company.
Yeah.
Like it was just this really strange time in human history when all this was going
Yeah.
on. So yeah, how did what does the day-to-day of the founder CEO look like when you've made that transition to like a company with a culture that is built to serve Home Depot rather than the little guy?
Well, the hard part was I'd never done that before.
Yeah.
So I
I
didn't
mean,
know how to
neither.
do that. I didn't know how to talk to these people. Frankly, I didn't enjoy an enterprise sales process. I
Yeah.
didn't enjoy, I mean, it's kind of one reason I started a company. It's like, I don't want to be involved in corporate America. And like,
Yeah.
I don't really like the politics. I don't really like being in all of that. But what I did realize when I raised the Series A, we started hiring some really great executives. And these people are awesome. And I was like, oh, like these people are really talented. They're nothing like you and me,
Yeah.
but they're equally as talented, just in a whole different set of things. They love being on calls all day. They love navigating,
Yeah.
org charts
Yeah.
and finding decision makers and that whole thing. And I was like, I hate this. Y'all love it. That's great. But I just knew like AI was moving so fast that we had to make that pivot very quickly. So I actually called one of our lead investors and brought up to him. I said, hey, like, I don't know if I'm the right guy to move us into the enterprise. And what do you think about that? Like, again, I think I could given enough time, but like, I think we might be able to find a better CEO to go do this. And he said, well, he goes, that could be true. He goes, I wouldn't tell anybody you're thinking that, because it's
Yeah.
kind of a one-way road. Like once they're telling
Yeah.
people you're thinking that, like you kind of have to do it.
Yeah.
He's like, sit on it for like 4 or 5 months. and just kind of make sure it's where you're thinking, do all the stuff you can in the interim. So it's like, all right, I'll think about that. And it's kind of waited 4 or 5 months. I felt like helped turn the corner, the company. We had some baggage that like just from hyperscaling, like it's so hard. We just grew way too fast and decided some like baggage to kind of clean up, there. And then I ended up calling him back in September of, what was it, 23. So a little over a year ago, and just being like, hey, I've thought about it. I think we're going to be better positioned if we hire a CEO that has real enterprise experience. And
Yeah.
so I said, I'm sure you get this call all the time from founders, like, what do you tell them? What do you recommend? And he said, Dave, because I've been doing this 25 years, I've actually never had a founder call me and tell me they wanted to hire a CEO. He goes,
Yeah.
it's always me
Yeah.
calling them,
Yeah.
which is still confusing to me. Again, to me, it makes all the sense in the world. It's like, hey, like
Yeah.
I've taken it as far as I can. We're
Mm-hmm.
going into a whole new place and we've got to do it super fast. Like it's a win-win. Like if I could find someone that's better than me at this, now I don't have to do all this work I'm terrible at. My stock price goes up. The company's happier, the
Yeah.
teammates happier, and the customers are served better. I'm like, there's no loss in this. So we ended up just running like a really quick process, finding our now current CEO, Timothy Young. He was a Dropbox president at the time. And he and I just really clicked, right out of the gate. He's a former founder, but had kind of also climbed the ladder and done all these different things. And it was just like, hey, dude, I need you to help do the enterprise thing.
Yeah.
Can you like come in and take over? And so like really great culture fit. Found him super quick. I think from the first time we talked, he was hired as CEO like 45 days later.
Yeah.
I moved onto the board and kind of stepped out of the company so we could like run his, thing. And that's been so good for the company. He's so good. He's so much better than me at like this stage.
Yeah.
The
Was that a
company's
year ago?
just a little over a year ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's been really awesome. So I think just like too, for people that are listening, like it's okay to step out of your own
Yeah.
company and your identity is not your company. Like you have to do right by your shareholders, you have to do right by your employees, you have to do right by your customers, and sometimes that means it's not you doing it.
Yeah.
And again, for me that was easy, but I guess for a lot of people that's so painfully hard to
Yeah.
do that they
Your
end up just kind of
baby or
tanking the
whatever.
company.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, so I'm so glad. And yeah, we've made this kind of turn as a company. We've got enough kind of people that are like have the enterprise DNA in them that like we're getting these like really big, great customers,
Yeah.
expanding super well. Like we're really like that part of the
So it
business is
happened.
growing.
It just like went from 6 dudes. Because well, the question that I have and I've never asked you is like, would there have been another path, right? If you hadn't raised money and you would have stayed 8 guys at 50 million ARR, $1 million of profit a month, like was there, would ChatGPT just have annihilated that entire business? Or could you have like, look, okay, so here's my thought experiment that I'm really wondering about, right? So it's like, let's say you got to 50 or 60 and it would have been maybe 70 with another
Yeah.
guys. And then maybe it starts shrinking. Even if that thing shrinks to 45
Yeah.
and it's 9 guys, it's still an epic business.
Yeah.
Right.
And just
Like
spitting out
yeah, it's just
cash.
like, could you do the feature build to like it's teams or something? And it's not, you know what I mean? It's like not enterprise,
Yeah.
but it's like, it's this product that's like a little differentiated from ChatGPT that like, whatever, like
Yeah.
ever think about that? Like,
I think, yeah, I think there's a world where like that could work. I don't think that company could grow revenue ultimately for super long,
no,
but you could
because
optimize for profit
it's like what
and
I'm
profit
dealing
per
with,
employee.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like you could run that game. You could run it a little more relaxed. You could
Yeah.
have your favorite people ever in the same room working
Yeah.
together. And it'd be like you'd be optimized for like slightly different things, not like we're going to go public, but like we're
Yeah.
going to pull in $100 million of profit over the next, 3
Yeah.
years. But eventually I think the only path is to go enterprise.
Yeah.
And if those 9 people couldn't figure out how to do that,
Yeah.
then eventually you'd kind of be in trouble and you'd have to sell to some private equity. You'd have to sell a
Yeah.
drinking company, which would be tough. And
Totally.
you'd get like a 1x multiple on
Yeah. Yeah.
it.
Or
So
EBITDA or whatever,
yeah. So anyway, but yeah, no, that was what I was considering doing. That
Yeah.
was kind of always the plan that you and I talked
Yeah.
about was like, let's just kind of run these things, 8 or 9 people. It's super fun. We're throwing
Yeah.
the football in the office. There's no politics. There's no
Yeah.
hiring. You're just like
Yeah.
doing it as long as you possibly can. So, but yeah, it was a stressful 2 years, 3 years. It was
Yeah.
like, but super fun, super high highs, super low lows,
Yeah.
like the full gamut, 10 years of kind of work compressed into this like tiny little time frame.
It's just so wild, man. Like
But
just seeing it from where I was so crazy.
yeah, I'm sure you looked over and I was either smiling ear to ear
Yeah.
or totally just sullen and
Yeah.
sad.
So what do is that it for you with SaaS? Are you trying to like open a bar or something like that? Or like you want to go
We're
build something else with JP? What are you doing?
So we're probably not going to do anything in SaaS right now. I want to do something local.
Yeah.
It's like you kind of know this being online. It's like most people I knew were not in Austin, so
Yeah.
it's like I actually don't know like a ton of people in Austin, and
Yeah.
I'm going to be in Austin the rest of my life, and I want to kind of be in the ins and outs of what's going on in the city, and so
Mhm.
we kind of decided, hey, let's do something local. Let's do something kind of in our community. Let's do something. I've always wanted to know, like, how do you build real things in the world? Yeah,
Yeah.
not to build software, not to build landing pages, but like if you're like, hey, like, can you install a sign in that field over there?
Yeah.
I'd be like, I don't
No.
even know how to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Like, not only do I know, I don't know who to call. Like, I don't know how
Yeah.
to make it happen.
Yeah.
So we've been working on this kind of family restaurant, pickleball, hangout area,
Yeah.
like 2 blocks from my house. There's just three
There you
acre
go.
piece of land. I've always driven past, but like I want to buy that someday. So it's real life, it's tangible. I'm
Yeah.
big on community, I'm big on families getting together. And so it's just like totally up my alley. It's not going to be a great way to like make a bunch of money. You
Yeah.
can't IPO a pickleball hangout
Yeah.
restaurant,
Right.
but
Right.
it's been such a fun project to kind of take all the learnings of software and like apply it to that. But who knows? Maybe JP, he's our technical co-founder. I have a hard time thinking about doing SaaS without him. He's kind
Yeah.
of taken
That's Tate with me
he's
too.
taken a step back from
Yeah.
the keyboard,
Yeah.
and so I kind of have to wait for him to get
Yeah.
the itch again to do something.
I don't think I could build a company without Tate.
You
I
got
think
he's
it's the
he's
same
the
thing.
guy.
Yeah. It's just
So
like,
it's like if JP's out,
yeah.
I'm like going to restaurant pickleball mode.
Yeah. Well, dude, this was incredible. Thank you so much. Audience, thank you for those great questions. Although we were just kind of talking the whole time, didn't answer very many. Where can people connect with you, find you? Are you just invisible online anymore?
That's a good question. I used to have like a good answer. It was like David Jasper.
Yeah.
I don't know. Probably tweet at me.
Yeah.
That's probably or X at me or
Okay.
whatever. That's kind of where I'm hanging out, most of the
Okay.
time these days. But yeah, mostly I'm figuring out how to build a restaurant, which is not being an influencer in the online space, but
Dude, yeah.
tons of fun.
Here we
So
go. I'm in the seat now.
yeah.
My turn.
But thank
It's
you
my
for being
turn.
my Roger Bannister and showing me how it's done.
And likewise, right back at you,
And
man.
then you just go back and forth and ping pong. And
Yeah,
do
you
it
are
together.
the average of the 5 people that you hang out with most,
Yeah.
right? Like so, and I think your ambition tends to mirror the ambition of the people
Yeah.
that you are around, which is exactly what you said about Y Combinator. Dude, this was awesome. Thank
Thanks
you
for
so
having me,
much.
man. Yeah, dude. Appreciate it.
Thank
Thank you,
you, the world,
everybody.
for attending another Inbound Let Outbound live. Let me know if you like this format. And Dave's getting a phone call.
Get a phone call. Perfect time. It's my wife.
All right, man. Take
All
care.
right. Sounds good. Thanks, man.
Holler. Cool.